Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is James Bird, and today I am joined with Luke and Corbin. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important topic, something that is a very hot topic, and it's something that really matters and has changed the world. And today, we're hoping that you are excited and possibly see where we're coming from. And yeah, let's dive right into it. So the topic today that we are talking about is social media and what it's done and whether or not children should have access to social media in the first place. Social media has changed the world. It's changed the way people are connected, how businesses are run, how everything is done. And it really has taken off with the invention of the internet. So really within these last 20 years there's been a lot of changes in the way that the whole world is going. So with that being said, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of progress. However, today we will be focusing on some of the issues and some of the dangers that children pose and really what happens when children have a lot of access to social media in the first place. So, on the rise in these last 10, 15 years has been mental health issues. And social media is not a very great thing because it contributes to people who are seriously struggling with their mental health. Social media is a great outlet for connecting with individuals and people and seeing others. However, on the flip side, social media has caused a lot of new ways of harm to the youth, especially. For example, we have bullying. Not only there's bullying, it's evolved into cyberbullying, where people can go online and maliciously attack other students and other people. And then when there's bullying, when the bullying rates go up, you have suicide rates go up. And so eventually, we will have a lot of children who have a lot of mental health issues and self-worth issues, comparing issues, crippling depression. There are so many things that they end up getting affected by. And the sad part is a lot of them don't even know that they are eventually going to be consumed by it. Because what ends up happening is they are just so used to social media and eventually they start using it too much. They don't feel like it's an issue when it really is an issue. And with a lot of social media practices, there's a lot of students who can see what other people are using, what other children are using, and what they're doing, especially. And a very big issue that's come about is actually comparing and seeing what other people's successes are. And sometimes that information isn't even correct in the first place. Maybe what they're seeing isn't even true. Possible. And another big issue is that there's a lot of because there's so much access to information and media. There's a lot of inappropriate content out there that a lot of children, students, and people who have no business being on social media. There's just so many bad things out there where, as a parent, it would be a really scary conversation to have, trying to explain to their child why they are seeing things on the internet, what is going on, is this good, is this bad? It's a very hard conversation, and it just leads. There's just so many issues with this, and so going forward, we're going to continue to talk about some of the mental health issues that are happening.
All right, so one of these first things that we're going to talk about, kind of one of the major side effects that we're seeing of social media usage by children or teenagers or kids in general, is a diminished social awareness and kind of a lack of social abilities. This first point, kind of what it talks about, is that when children are exposed to social media at ages 11 to 13, is kind of that critical range and younger. That's a key developmental time in a human being's life. And so when they're when they're opened up to that whole new digital world on social media, it begins to alter the way that their minds develop, that their attitudes develop and their behaviors develop. So like this says is that when have that exposure at such a young age, they're a lot more likely to develop these different problematic digital behaviors. They aren't old enough when they're first given access to this, that they know how to handle it. They kind of are taking that trial by error method, and they have to start practicing these different behaviors themselves. And a lot of times they develop these negative behaviors that we're seeing. Some other negative behavior that we're seeing is that they prioritize their social media or digital media usage over things like sleep. Kids will stay up all night to spend more time on their phone, on their gaming console, on their computer, whatever it is, that they sacrifice something necessary like sleep, which can then lead to some irritability. When they start to miss out on that necessary sleep, then they can become more irritable. Kind of like what James was talking about on that last slide, is depression is another big one. They start to kind of show symptoms of that. And then they also show a lack of focus. They aren't able to focus on reality. They aren't able to focus in school. Kids are diagnosed a lot more with ADHD because they can't sit still for longer than a certain amount of time. One thing that people always said that I love to think about is that I don't know if it's necessarily true, but I think it's just kind of a fun saying to think about, is that nowadays uh, the attention span of a child is no more than that of a goldfish. The children have to go from stimuli to stimuli to get that constant dopamine that they're getting when they're on social media all day. Um, but when they have those social media interactions, and when those social media interactions are more frequent, more often occurring than face-to-face interactions, then they start to really develop these negative behaviors, and they start to also gain a lack of ability to identify certain social cues that are important in a normal human being's life. It's harder for them to pick up on body language. They can't understand facial expressions and what it means. They don't pick up very well on tonnage, whether that's understanding it or also knowing how to use tonnage. And they kind of lack that respect of personal space and boundaries, whether that's physical or mental and emotional boundaries as well. They can't really pick up on maybe when it's appropriate to say something versus when it's appropriate to hold back and not say something. Um, so I think it's important to realize that although social media isn't always negative and it's not always bad, and a lot of people who are primarily adults know how to monitor their time on social media, and it's not something that may take over their life. Not that that means that it's not taking over lives of a lot of people, but a major thing is to keep in mind that it's important that we don't just give kids full access to the social media at such a young age. Again, that 11 to 13 and before 11 years old too is such a critical time in a human being's life, and their brain is developing so much that we have to make sure we give them the proper environment so that they don't start to develop in down a different road, and they don't start to develop these negative behaviors that we've talked about. Um, just a couple benefits of correctly monitoring social media usage for kids is that they can learn positive behaviors. As a parent, we can help them navigate that maze of what behaviors are good to pick up, what behaviors aren't very good to pick up. We can help them set their own boundaries based on what we think is appropriate. Um, we can help them kind of learn themselves what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And then we can also help them gain their own understanding of some of the side effects that social media can have when there are no boundaries. So we can kind of help them develop a better understanding of when we don't put A and B in place, then we start to see side effects C and D. And again, like what we said, is that a lot of those are coming out to be pretty negative. Doesn't mean that it's ruining someone's life, but it is a more negative than positive behavior and mentality or attitude that we're seeing these kids develop.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke and James. And I mean, it's be really addictive. Everyone's been guilty of spending too much time scrolling Reels, TikTok, whatever it is. I mean, if you think about it, the internet's part of our daily life. It's there from the time we wake up. Everybody uses some sort of timer to wake up with their screens, their phones, till the time we go to bed to set those timers again. And there's not necessarily a clinical diagnosis for those addicted to screens, social media, but there are other diagnoses out there for similar things like a gaming disorder. That's something you can be diagnosed with. And it's because these apps, these games that kids have access to are designed for addiction. Um, like I mentioned earlier, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, these things with those quick 15, 20-second videos just keep the user engaged, and it's hard to set down the phone, and it ultimately ends to a lot of negative things like Luke and James kind of pointed to earlier, but some of the other things are an impact to cognitive abilities. Those who are addicted to screens and spend a lot of time on social media have a harder time in the classroom. There's been a lot of case studies that show that. There's one that's super popular that a lot of people have probably seen. It's with the Oreos. So if a kid waits a certain amount of time, they get two Oreos, or they can just take one immediately. Those who are addicted to social media, scrolling screens, are more likely to take an Oreo right off the bat, whether, it is to wait, 5 minutes for another one, something small like that. So those small things end up having a really big impact on these kids' lives as they develop into, their teen and adult years. Um, and like I kind of mentioned earlier, we use these for literally everything. A lot of kids don't know how to get from point A to point B without the use of their screen. Um, and there's a lot of, serious addictions later down the road that can be caused by this. There's obviously a lot more access to harmful images, content on the internet. So children who are more exposed and more addicted to screens in their youth are more likely to develop harmful addictions to adult content or other things as they become older. Um, and addiction is really overlooked by a lot of parents because they see screens as almost a babysitter for their kids. So there's only about 50% of parents right now that have like screen limits or anything like that for their kids, especially with social media. Um, so kind of all together, just to kind of review what we've talked about today here, we've kind of gone over a couple different things. Luke, if you want to jump to the next slide there. Yeah. First thing, mental health and misuse of social media and screens, diminished social awareness and abilities, the benefits of, monitor social media use, and finally the addiction to screens. And no matter who you are, whether you're a parent, sibling, teacher, policymaker, we definitely do need to prioritize children's mental health. Everyone should feel the urgency to advocate for stronger regulations on social media, maybe even an education system that helps these kids develop these strong digital habits. And most importantly, we all need to take accountability to be that voice that helps these children navigate the social media world. And, together we can all ensure that social media is a tool that is used for development and growth and not harm. So really appreciate everybody listening here, and um, hope that y'all are able to take this message and apply it and help those around you.